What's up, JR Noble here. I'm here at the West End Hotel around LAX Airport out here in Los Angeles. I'm here for the third day of the Taxi Music Conference. All right, I've been here for 3 days, but I wanted to share a few takeaways that I got from today's music conference, just from some of the talks that I went to. One in particular, there's some tips that I could share for some of the music producers that are watching this. And I know there's a bunch that are following this my channel here. And so also, if you're watching this, be sure to drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching this from. I'd love to hear where you're coming in from and where you're watching from. But a few tips that I had taken away. I went to this SongShop that was actually for songwriters. And you might be wondering, well, why as a music producer would I go to a songwriting workshop? Well, what I've found is that when I work on songs with artists, sometimes they look to me and they ask me for help on their lyrics and their songwriting, or they might need particular help with how the arrangement of the track, right? So how they're delivering their lyrics, they might want some help with that. So it actually helps me to be more use in the studio when I go to stuff like this, right? So one of the big takeaways I had from this workshop, it was with Jai Josef, and about songwriting, was the thing he talks about was being effing good, all right? And what he meant by effing good was that you want to have a balance, you want to strike a balance between keeping your song fresh and keeping it familiar, okay? And this is something that Robin Frederick talked about yesterday in one of her talks about keeping things fresh, right? But what he was talking about was finding a balance between the fresh and the familiar, because when your songs are too fresh. So for example, there was somebody in the class played a song, it sounded really awesome, but what he was saying was that what his feedback was about the song was that it was too fresh, right? There was too many really good hooks, too many really awesome hooks, and too many lyrical hook ideas, and just a lot of stuff going on there. And what it left us walking away with, and when he asked everybody in the room who could tell him what the title of that song was, nobody could remember what the title of the song was. So there wasn't enough familiarity in there that we could remember or recall what the song was about. And so how does that help as a producer too? It's, not putting so many, if you have a top line melody or lead synth melody or something, you're not using it, you're not changing up the melody so much that it's hard for people to follow, but you're still keeping it fresh, all right? Keeping that balance of keeping it fresh, but you're also keeping it somewhat familiar too, all right? And because the thing is, if it gets too familiar, then you run the risk of it being boring, okay? And so you don't want it to be too familiar because you don't want it to get boring, but you don't want it to be too fresh that it's so unique that it kind of loses the listener. All right, so that was one of the takeaways that I got from that songwriting workshop. And the other one that I took away from this was that it was having what he calls a spare parts drawer, right? So imagine, like, maybe at your house you might have a drawer where it's like a junk drawer, and you pull it out and there's like all kinds of pens and all this other stuff in there that you don't really think about, you just kind of toss it in that one drawer. Well, what he was saying was, as songwriters, they have a lyrical kind of junk drawer like that, right? Whereas music producers, we could have a spare parts drawer or junk drawer where we might be working on a track and there's a section or an idea or something in that track that doesn't really fit for that track. But what we can do is we can hang on to that idea, store it, stash it away somewhere in that junk drawer, and then we might find another use for that at some other time on some other track. All right, so it's really cool and really useful to have that storage of ideas and things to kind of go back to, because they might freshen up some other track that you happen to have. All right, so it's really good to have that junk drawer kind of on the side and just start stashing away those ideas for that, because you can use those later. All right, so again, be sure to drop a comment, let me know where you're coming in from. So those are a couple of takeaways that I had from this conference, all right? Having that junk drawer idea and just being able to stash away those ideas. So the first one was finding a balance between fresh and familiar, so not being so fresh that it's too unique and it's something that people can't relate to, but not being too familiar and not being so familiar that it becomes boring, okay? And then the other thing was having that junk drawer of ideas, or that spare parts drawer where you can take all your ideas that maybe don't fit for one track, but put them into another track later on. Because here's the thing, he shared us an example from the Beatles. They did like a recording of a demo song, and it's kind of old, but it was actually a really, really great illustration of this point of having this junk drawer of ideas, because in the middle of the song, there was a lyric that he sang, John Lennon sang, where it ended up, they took it out. They said, hey, let's not use that for this particular song because it doesn't work. And then he played us what that lyric melody was, and immediately everybody in the room knew what it was, because it was the lyrical melody. It was this really short riff that he used in the song Imagine. So if you've ever heard the song Imagine, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, check out John Lennon Imagine. And he ended up using that later on. So that was just one of those ideas that he just kind of stashed away in that spare parts drawer that he ended up using for a later song. All right. So hopefully you got some value out of that. Again, find a balance between keeping it fresh, but also keeping it familiar, and then keep that spare parts drawer so that way you can take those ideas that maybe don't work for the song you're working on currently, but then put them in somewhere that you can reference pretty quickly and easily, and be able to use that for other ideas for other tracks, and maybe freshen up some other track with that idea. All right. So again, I'm here at LAX, or at the Westin Hotel over by LAX, for the Taxi Music Conference here, and wanted to share some of the takeaways that I got. So my question to you is, what is your biggest takeaway from that? What did you like best about this video? So share with that in the comments below. Let me know what you like best about this post, and I'd love to hear more about that in the comments. So check it out, drop that comment in there, let me know what you like best about this. And I'm gonna sign off here, and I'll check you out later. All right, so thanks for taking the time to stop by and check this out, and I will talk to you again soon. All right, I'm gonna sign off of here.